And now, live from Pod Cabin in Burbank, California, it's the Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend show. Tonight, Allison welcomes her guests. She's a comedian and writer who hosts Mega, the podcast, an improvised show about a fictional mega church. It's Holly Laurent. And he's a comedian and writer who also hosts Mega, the podcast, and Get It to Dutch. It's Greg Hess. Tone Zone is here to search his yard for buried rugs. I'm her husband, Daniel, saying hop on board the love bus and say hello to your new best friend, Allison Rosen.
Allison Rosen. Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Allison, with her the good times never end. Allison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Allison Rosen, Allison's your new best friend.
Hello, my little pumpkin pies. Welcome to another exciting episode of Allison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. That particular seasonal, arguably a little too early. Maybe it's questionable. Carbohydrate was sent in on Patreon. By Alyssa Wones. And yes, I am on Patreon. All sorts of fun stuff over there. It was a big week on Patreon for me, as you'll hear when we say hello and welcome to all the new Patreon people, or patrons. This many years in, and I still haven't decided what I'm calling them. Because I uploaded an episode that was about like weight and weight loss. And I think a lot of people came for that. And then also all sorts of other fun stuff over there. You can listen to episodes of The Friend Zone, my Patreon podcast. You can submit carbohydrates. You can see photos, etc. And if you're going to subscribe, do an annual subscription and get 2 months free.
That's a good deal.
Also am legally bound to recommend that you subscribe to my Substack. AllisonRosen.com. Nope. I mean, that will get you somewhere with me-related stuff. And eventually you could click through to Substack. But what I was trying to say was AllisonRosen.substack.com. I just put one up last night. I am I'm telling, really for the first time, the story of how I ended up on the Corolla show and other stuff. AllisonRosen.substack.com. Okay. I'd like to say hello to my guests who are here for the first time, but it is as if I already know them because so many people have recommended them. That's a lot of pressure. Okay. Greg Hess, hello.
Hey, Allison.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to be here. Very nice to be met, but I'm worried about who recommended me.
Ooh. This sounds fun.
I know.
Hi, Holly Laurent.
Yeah.
Laurent, did I get it right? Okay, Holly Laurent, hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you as well.
I'm your new best friend.
That's right. But you're not, Greg.
Well, I'm not. I guess I'm not my own best friend in this moment because if it's true that people recommended me, I'm not sure exactly what they recommended. So we'll see. We'll see if I can pull out all the stops for this.
We'll dig into this in a moment.
Absolutely.
Tony Thaxton, hello.
Hello. Since we are short Daniel today, I figure we'll let him speak about how he would feel being here.
Why am I wasting this time with this bullshit?
Now, was that drop pulled from when he actually had a little on-air meltdown?
Ago, I think,
oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. My husband is normally on the podcast. We were talking about politics lightly. I don't get into, if someone wants to talk about it, fine. But like in general, this is not a super political podcast. But it's hard not to touch on politics every now and again, given everything going on. So I asked think a light question that maybe required a short answer, but then he went in depth and I was watching the clock. And so I changed the subject and he felt, and then I could tell his entire energy shifted. And I'm like,
my wife.
And because we're married, which as you guys are, yes,
we are, yeah,
to each other,
yes.
So
as far as we know,
right? It's the kind of show where anything could happen.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And so then he just, went into this thing about how he's not here, so I can really make things worse. Just that, if I'm not, I don't care what he's saying, and why is he even here if I'm not going to be listening to what he's saying? Why not get a real guest and blah blah blah? And play it again, Tony.
Why am I wasting this time with this bullshit?
So that's what that was from. And I had this thought of this is good pod. This is like, or like, you know, awkward Howard Stern territory. And I don't know that it went over in that way. Like, people responded, but there weren't a lot of people who were like, I need more of that. But Daniel pointed out, if they were to have said, like, I need more of that, that's almost rude to us. If they were saying to us that they love hearing our marriage crumble, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did
Did
you
it seem
continue
like
to cannibalize your tension for us to eat?
Yeah, I know. I'm hashtag Team Daniel. I would love for this to be a political podcast from here on out. Were listeners going, we want more political talk from Daniel?
People were divided.
Okay.
But there were a few, and Daniel doesn't know this, and I'm not going to bring it to his attention. There were a few Apple Podcasts. I still say iTunes. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
There were a few Apple Podcast reviews that were like, we don't want to hear anything that Daniel has to say. We just tune in for this. And then at first I felt vindicated for like half a second. And then I felt really guilty because like I felt like as the host of the show, I feel sort of responsible for the reactions people have to anyone on the show.
Right.
Or if not responsible, then I feel like I want to protect people, you know? And even though, yes, that tension was real between us, I felt like because of that, now people are saying shitty things about him. And if he saw that, that would hurt his feelings. And so I felt really bad.
So is that why Daniel's not here today?
No, that is not. As far as I know, no. He's not here today because he has a real job.
Oh, that's nice.
So only occasionally does he have to work. No,
Right.
okay, we never know. We never know until like morning up whether he'll be able to do it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get any messages after the show being like, you guys okay?
No, did you?
No. But I wondered if that might happen.
Yeah, no, people seem to take it in stride.
All right.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think because this is getting so deep and so real so fast.
Let's do it.
I think I also, so after he left, then I shared like my own side of it. He left to go pick up our son from school, but it wasn't, he didn't not storm out, let's say. Didn't it feel like he left in a huff? Or did it feel like a joking, like goodbye forever?
No, it didn't seem jokey.
Was it kind of the Marin Gallagher vibes? Did you ever listen to that?
I never listened to that.
It wasn't quite that.
Did Gallagher storm off?
This is how old I am, that I was listening to Mark Maron when Gallagher was on. I feel like this is like podcast history. But yeah, Maron sort of, I wouldn't say he went in hard on Gallagher, but sort of was asking about what the root of his comedy was. And Gallagher stands up and storms off. And there's a very funny Mark Maron calling after Gallagher, which is just like, oh, come on, Gallagher, please, Gallagher.
So wait, Gallagher got offended that he was asking what like the
I can't remember the
impetus for his comedy.
Yeah, or kind of like the crux. And I think Mark Maron was in his very Maron way, a little bit leading in his like, you know, you're just smashing fruit or something like that,
right?
And saying puns. And I think Gallagher got upset and stormed out of a Best Western hotel room wherever they were.
Interesting.
Gallagher.
Yeah, it was like and then it was very sad because Maron just kind of sounded like a kid getting left on the playground or something with Gallagher leaving.
That's sweet. A moment of sincerity from Mark Maron. That's great.
I know that particular one is super famous though in like the canon.
That and the Mencia one are kind of like I think after that I've sort of stopped listening, and that might have been 10 years ago. But every now and then, if I see a guest I like, I'll still listen.
Right.
But was a hardcore fan.
Why now? Aside from Gallagher storming out, is that like why is that one so legendary?
I think
is it because of the storming out?
Yeah, I think because Maron maybe
that means
had
Tony.
not
My
had
episode
that.
with Daniel
Is the Gallagher episode of the canon? Yeah.
Sorry, I stepped over you. You were saying that.
Oh no, that I think it was just that Maron maybe had not had someone storm out
right
due to his probing questions before. And, you know, had you ever had Daniel storm out before?
No, never.
And I think that's a good clip to continue to use.
He seems okay today.
Yeah,
no,
he seemed
fine,
great.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, I think maybe the reason that we didn't get people saying, "Are you okay?" is I maybe not put it in context, but I just talked about, after he left, I talked more about it, and I said that like we're going to be fine. You know, we're doing couples counseling.
After he left, but when is he releasing his rebuttal episode?
I know.
His new political podcast.
Yeah, exactly. He should. Like, remember Stephanie Wilder Taylor?
Mm-hmm.
She feels like her husband would get along really well with Daniel, and they could talk. I mean, there are people who want to talk politics.
Yeah.
If you can believe it. And if he had a podcast where he talked about it. I think he could get right to those people.
Right.
Did you do the repair side of it? Did you take the time afterwards to be like, okay, this thing happened and it gave me some information that I want to process with you?
Well, so actually we had counseling that day. So it was kind of perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Have you guys ever done counseling?
We
Oh,
are
yeah.
in couples therapy currently.
Okay. So then have you had the experience where you're like, what are we going to talk about today?
Sure.
So that's great if something comes up right before or the night before even.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Got something to work out. How's it? I mean,
Paying
so
this guy for something.
yeah, so personal, but how's it going?
I'm really glad we're in therapy. Like even the times where we've been like, man, it feels like we're rocking and rolling. We're firing on all cylinders. We've been connecting with the ball. We've been connecting with each other. Like those are the times where I've kind of white knuckled Greg and been like, we don't stop because it's getting good.
Yeah,
Because chances are it's getting good because we're doing this.
totally.
You've had the feeling of what are we going to talk about today in therapy? I've never had that feeling.
Oh, really?
Never.
Oh, interesting.
Never.
Oh, well, but that's just a difference between, I think, my original view of therapy and how my view of therapy has changed. My original view of therapy was always like, you have to go in with the thing that you need to talk about, to work on. And it's sort of like prescriptive.
Right.
Whereas I think my view of therapy has turned into more like going to the gym,
Yes.
which is, oh, this is cumulative. It's
Therapeutic.
Yes, it's therapeutic. It doesn't have to be based on one topic or issue or whatever. It can actually be a lot of different things. And you're not going in to just suddenly be fixed on that idea or that thing that came up.
Right.
That brought up an interesting realization recently where we were like, oh, the very nature of therapy itself tends to keep you all, the three of you in that room in that hour, all focused on problems. That's usually the nature of it. And as that kind of came to light with us, we're like, oh, wow, we're coming in here saying like, here's a problem, here's an issue, here's something, you know, I guess that you would put in the negative energy
Right.
category. And we've realized in there like, oh, wow, we can come in here and also like focus on like, what are the things that are working well? What are the things we appreciate? What are the, like, he's given us some compliments before where he's like, you are naturally doing these things where you consider each other in a way that like most people, they're trying to get to that part of
Right.
like, even considering, you know, and I'm like, oh, really? I want the compliments. I'm like,
Of
give me the
course.
compliments. I will keep
Yeah.
those in my pocket. I will put them on rotisserie and like hang on for dear fucking life. But, oh, can we swear?
Yo, yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's a revolutionary idea to me too. It's like going into therapy and being like, could we use this time to, as a practice in the type of thinking I am interested in doing more of instead of continuing down the same deep neurological pathways of how bad all these things are and the stories I tell myself and the things that get attached to the emotions and the, you know, the fear and all of that. So it's, I feel like Greg, you went from, sort of being a non-therapy person to now being in like, you're in individual therapy, you're in couples therapy, where like,
All in.
yeah,
Yeah.
man.
I'm an all-in therapy person. So
Yeah.
Did
Dan-
you grow up with that as an example, though? Like in your house? Like, did either of your parents ever do it or anything like that?
My dad had been in analysis.
Yes.
My grandfather was a psychoanalyst. So I grew up in
Yeah.
a very pro-therapy family. Like I have said before that therapy was our religion. Like
Yeah.
we didn't have any
Yeah.
religion, but everything could be understood through the lens of therapy, but almost too much. I think
Yeah.
I believe in therapy, but I think the way it was sort of loosely practiced in my nuclear family was not super great because all these like, you know, you're doing this because you're in this phase and like all
Oh,
these
I see.
analyses from my parents who weren't therapists. So growing up, my parents were not in therapy. But my dad had been in therapy. So I definitely grew up in like a pro therapy family. I first went in to therapy because I was in this relationship that was not good. And I was like obsessed with this guy. And I think everyone around me was like, oh my God, she's talking about Jeff again. And my dad actually, how old was I? I guess I was about 20. And my dad recommended that I talk to a counselor at the school at my college. And I remember feeling really slighted by that and hurt. But I'm really glad he did because she was fantastic. I cried throughout the entire first session, like something broke inside me, you know. And then I started going to her in private practice. She was like there getting a PhD or something, and then yeah, I've been like in and out ever since. So yeah, and then Daniel has not been in therapy nearly as much as me.
See, that's great though, because I think it wasn't stigmatized in my family, but it just didn't ever, I guess it was stigmatized sort of like in the culture that I came from of just like, if you go to therapy, there's something really wrong.
Yeah.
And that was, and it's for, you know, quote unquote, like if you're losing your mind or something.
Right.
And that definitely that narrative stuck with me for a long time, you know, or that you just go when there's like crisis or a problem.
Right.
And that's been a cool learning experience for me of just like, oh, I don't have to be in crisis for this to be super helpful.
Holly, you grew up in a really religious family, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I should say, you guys together have a podcast called Mega, which is an improvised satire of a mega church.
Yes.
And then, Greg, you have Take It to Dutch?
Get It to Dutch.
Get It to Dutch.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Which is an improvised podcast by three like struggling screenwriters.
That's right.
Right. Who are the other people on the podcast?
So in that one, that's a group called Cook County Social Club, which was like a longtime comedy group that I was a part of in Chicago. And we all moved here at the same time, kind of on the hope and the dream in 2013 when we sold a pilot together. And so that one is myself, a guy named Mark Rotterman, and Brendan Jennings, and then Tim Robinson was a member of that group, and he plays our landlord in a couple of the episodes.
Brendan sounds so much like Chris Fairbanks. Does anyone ever say that?
Brendan Jennings?
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think it's Brendan.
Yeah.
From what I listened.
Yeah, maybe.
Wow.
But yeah, you might know Brendan because he was on AP Bio. He was the janitor on AP Bio. But yeah, they're just kind of, those are like my best friends from like my oldest comedy friends. And so, yeah, we just had this idea that we're, you know, not too far from the truth, three struggling screenwriters who are trying to pitch a movie and get it to this fictional producer.
Dutch.
And things, of course, like go off the rails. We got Weird Al to play our entertainment lawyer, which is very fun. And, but yeah, so that's what that pod's about.
Both podcasts are so funny.
Oh, thank you.
But I know, Holly, you grew up in a very religious. Your dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
Greg? Did you grow up in a religious family?
I did, not an evangelical family like Holly did, but I did grow up. Both my grandfather, great grandfather were pastors, and I grew up very like Protestant and sort of, and actually really like that was a huge part of my cultural upbringing of just like youth group and going to church on Wednesdays and stuff. But like, yeah, for it's kind of a different. It has a different flavor to it than the type that Holly grew up with, which was, you know, getting saved and things like that.
Little less damaging over there with the Presbos.
Yeah.
Is that what you call them?
Yeah. Presbos,
That's fun.
Presbyterians, the frozen chosen. Yeah. So I don't have a ton of hang-ups.
Wait, why frozen?
Sort of like a stoic. It's a kind of a stoic practice.
They ain't dancing.
They ain't dancing.
Right.
They're not clapping.
They're not putting the hands up.
No.
when they pray.
No. We're singing like hymns to an organ that kind of sound like funeral songs.
Got it.
And
Protestant churches are plain, right?
Protestant churches are like, yeah, pretty plain. Not too many smells and bells or lights or lasers or anything like that. Just like I grew up in in the country, so like it's like little country church.
Which country? What part of the country?
Bolivia. I grew up in Virginia,
where the Presbos hail.
That's right, in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. So it was like, you know, tiny little town and small church, and I generally had like pretty good associations with it, but still, there's a lot of stuff about it that I wish I didn't have and learn. You know,
You got the purity culture.
yeah, I got the purity culture. I got the like, you know, it's weird too because part of that from where I'm from is it's such a social thing. It's as much social in your community is everybody goes to church. And so you don't really have the idea that maybe not going to church would be an option. And so I very much like bought into, you know, I was like a camp counselor and all that stuff. I was the world's greatest camp counselor.
Did you play guitar and have long
Oh,
hair or anything?
hell yes,
Really?
Allison.
Did you wear a necklace?
Hell yeah. I wish I had it in
Hemp
my phone.
necklace.
Of
I had a
course.
hemp necklace. I had a puka shell necklace.
Hell yeah.
I was out there playing Dave Matthews for all the
Anything to get the Christian
There's
girls to
never a
kiss you.
bad
Yeah,
time to rock
anything.
and roll, man.
Betsy.
Tony,
But,
what religion did you grow up with?
Not
Presbo?
really. I mean, technically, yes, but it was basically nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, like I didn't go to church or anything.
But Presbyterian was the denomination?
Technically.
Nice, dude. I like the cut of your jib. I knew when I walked in here. I was like, that guy's also one of the chosen.
I forgot you were a Virginia boy too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Wait, you're from not?
Well,
you're
I'm
Northern
from
Virginia.
Michigan originally, but I lived in Richmond for a long time.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Holly's from Michigan originally.
Michigan.
Look at that.
Look at that. We've
that?
got to
What's
start
that?
a podcast about.
That's showing where. Wait, that's kind of like where I'm from too.
You are?
Oh, you don't know the Michigan hand
but I'm
sign.
like right on the other.
I don't.
I'm pointing to a part of my palm and showing the mitten of Michigan. This is what Michigan people do to show each other where they're from, because that's
I
Michigan.
didn't know. I didn't even know Michigan was in the shape of a hand.
Yeah,
Really?
You do
A
this,
mitten.
and then you just point to where. So Detroit, what are you pointing?
Yeah,
to,
where are you
Holly?
from?
This is Chicago
Michiana.
over here. This is Lake Michigan. This is all Lake Michigan. I'm from down here. I'm from Southwest Michigan, near Three Oaks. Niles, Michigan is where I'm from.
Really?
Yeah.
I lived in Edwardsburg.
Oh my god.
That's where I grew up.
I know
Did
a
you guys
kid
go to
named
prom?
Shane from Edwardsburg. Do you know someone named Shane?
You know what? A lot of the guys in Edwardsburg are named Shane.
No shit. And he was a friend of my brother's who definitely was trying to sneak in my room and kiss me as a little kid and on overnight sleepovers.
Yeah.
In like a welcome way or a.
I think I pretended to
essay
be
way.
asleep.
Okay.
I think I was like, I'm too young. Even I know this. But he was a kid, it wasn't like it was an adult. And I guess, shoot your shot, man. There's a little sister sleeping next door. You got to go in and be like, any smooching in here?
I feel that feels like a Shane thing to do.
It is
It's
a
a
very
Shane. I had a
Shane.
crush on a Shane, and
Yeah.
I think he would have done that.
I think
Shanes are wild.
Shanes seem, honestly, I hate to say this, but they seem Australian. And what I
They've
mean
got
by
Australian DNA.
And what I mean by Australian is I've had several friends who have hooked up with Australian men, and they all got pregnant.
Wow.
And they were all wild men. So I'm like, ooh, those are wild, fertile people. Stay away from those Shane types.
Wow, I didn't realize this.
And only one letter difference from shame, which you also grew up a lot with.
Had a lot of Shanes, had a lot of shame. Shames.
We never include the Upper Peninsula of the Michigan thing, though, because there's another part of Michigan that's up here.
And what
I don't know
part
what
of
you-
the mitten is that? Like
It's-
a pom pom?
It's separate.
I've always
It's like-
kind of, when I was a kid, I always kind of thought it looked like a fox. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
You need to basically do this with your hand and this with your hand because Michigan's one of the only states that it has one part on top of another state and it's connected by water. So, but no, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is like really, really rural. It's basically like Canada.
Is it
The
Lake
UP?
Michigan that separates it?
The Yoopers.
It's Lake. Is it Lake Michigan that separates it? Yeah, it's the
think
top
so,
part of
yeah.
Lake Michigan, and then going into what is that? Lake Erie.
These are my. I made a little circle around my mouth when I asked that.
I know.
As if I'm embarrassed because my sense of geography is pretty bad. It's
Really?
quite bad. Yeah.
Of this United States or the world in general?
Both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not like a total idiot. It's just we learned geography in third
Yeah.
grade. We memorized stuff. We wrote the names in the maps. And then I did a state report in fourth grade. My state was New Jersey. I drove across the country with my family when I was 12. And then any sort of learning stopped at that point.
Where did you
regarding
grow up?
California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What kind of car did you drive across the country in?
An Acura. Acura Legend. A four-seater. Yeah. I read Sweet Valley High books.
Oh, yeah.
Sexy.
I was super into them. And so
great.
that was like when we could stop at a store and I could buy the next, 5 in the series or whatever. That was pretty exciting for me.
My sister was really into those, and I remember I simultaneously was into the Choose Your Own Adventures.
Oh, those are great.
And then I would get through those, and just there would only be Sweet Valley Highs, and I'd be like, I guess I'm going to read this.
Oh, you've
And
read Sweet Valley High?
I remember reading some of those, and I remember reading the American Girl Doll series in like the back of our station wagon because there was just nothing else to read. So
Fantastic. What did you think of it? What was your experience?
I don't think I really related to it emotionally too much at that time, but looking back, maybe it helped me in some way. I don't know.
What do you remember from the Sweet Valley High books?
There was always like I feel like the Sweet Valley High books, who was like the main cool girl?
It's about a set of twins,
Twins.
Jessica and Elizabeth.
Am I confusing them with Babysitter's Club too?
Oh, maybe. Babysitter's Club, there were like 5 girls, I think, or 4 or 5.
It was an ensemble.
I can't even. I mean, this is maybe the first time I've said the word Sweet Valley High in 30 years.
It might have been Babysitter's Club. I feel like you read Babysitter's
So there
Club.
was Claudia. Who else was in Babysitter's
Oh
Club?
God, I just remember loving it. because it was from the kid's perspective.
The cool.
Oh,
I
yes.
feel like
I
the
do remember
coolest
that.
one had diabetes. She was diabetic.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe I'm forgetting their names. Oh
You said
well.
Claudia. Is that what you said?
Yeah, there was a Claudia.
There was a Christy.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
These are ringing some bells.
Mary-
but maybe
Mary
it's just the
Ann,
90s.
I
Sounds
guess.
right.
Stacy.
Yes,
Okay.
Stacy.
Stacy.
She was
Yes.
cool.
Stacy, Christy, absolutely. These are the names of the day.
Oh, I know. Everybody was named Stacy, Christy,
Christy,
Jody.
Shelley.
Mhm. You know, Holly is making a comeback.
Yeah,
I know.
There's a few
that.
baby Hollies of
I
late.
know.
I know.
Yeah.
Lauren
There was a-
Lapkus's daughter's name is Holly.
Really?
Yeah,
The Breaking Bad baby was named Holly.
that's right. And
Oh,
that's
that's right.
not that recent now.
But still.
But that was weird when it was on Breaking Bad. We were like, a baby Holly? You don't hear that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. How does Holly hit?
I don't know. I feel like this is from my experience of naming children. What happens is all of a sudden, some years before, wait, do you guys have kids?
No.
Some years before you have your kid, you're like, a name pops into your head. Agatha. I know a baby Agatha right now. And you're like, that's a cool name. And it's unusual right now. And then
Yeah.
by the time you,
Yep.
whelp your Agatha, and whelp, I think means stop giving it milk. But by the time you have your baby Agatha, they're in a class with like 13 other Agathas.
Yeah.
Because
Wait, do you
everyone.
have 2 kids?
I have 2 kids,
And-
yes. We have an Elliot and an Owen.
Elliot and Owen.
Yeah.
Owen got big, right?
It did, yes.
Yeah.
Elliot, there are other Elliots. There's girl Elliots.
Yeah. I know a girl Elliot.
I think there's more. I think I've met more girl Elliots than boy Elliots at this point.
And was Elliot, or either of those like names that you had your epiphany moment with?
Not exactly. I don't think I had. I tended, and unfortunately, I am not remembering. Actually, I can remember one. I tended to have the epiphany moments with girl names more. I remember it being like Olivia.
Mm-hmm.
That I love that name, and it's unusual. It's
Yeah.
off the beaten path, or like Evelyn, or these are all names that are so popular. These are probably
I
like
know.
number 1 and 2 or something. Like
We
Olivia,
have an Olivia niece.
Yeah.
Olivia, Emma, Sophie, there's-
Amelia,
Amelia. Yeah. Oh, there's so many.
yeah,
We have a niece that's named Fawn. So-
Fawn, Fawn,
Yeah.
Fawn. I don't know any fawns.
I know that one.
I only know it when my nervous system does it.
And when you fall over.
You know what? But the one that I really was like, I really like that name. Get this, Karen.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That would've
So
been great.
we're lucky,
Yeah.
because this was before the Karenization of Karen.
Yeah.
But my husband never liked that name.
I have a sadness for the name Karen that I thought about this the other day, which is if your name is Karen, I hate that it became a culturally a zeitgeisty negative thing about a name. I just think it's like kind of unfair, right?
Do you feel like it's punching down? Like it's cheap?
I do a
'Cause
little
name
bit.
humor's a little bit cheap.
Yeah, because it's just actually all the Karens that I've known are not the stereotype Karens. I've known
My daughter wouldn't have been.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we need to just
now
call it
people
like
are
annoying
like-
white women instead of
Yeah.
Karen.
But then you hear people
mouthful.
be like, take a chill pill, Susan,
Right.
or Denise. And I
Yep.
feel like when they do that, they're very like patting themselves on the back, like, look at me. I zagged. You expected me to, Okay. So your upbringing, though, very evangelical. What was
Yeah.
that like?
Very intense. I have very few memories of it, which I've
Really?
learned is something that happens with trauma. So I'm like, I have to dig kind of deep. But yeah, it was very intense. I mean, it was everything about our existence was about Jesus, 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 Jesus. And my dad, it was very dramatic too, because my dad would cast out demons and, it was like tent revivals and altar calls and tearful conversions. And it's a high control religion in terms of like a real demand on like every part of your lifestyle and way of living was like in control. It
Wow.
was seeking to control it. So yeah, it was really intense. And yeah, hence lots of therapy now. And I've noticed too, another thing with all of this therapy is how many different types of modalities and styles and personalities of therapists there are. It's also really kind of alarming to me to now see my peers who are now becoming therapists. And I'm like, wait, if you're a therapist, all of our therapists are incredibly suspect.
Oh, I think they are, though.
Yeah.
I think I love my therapists. I've been very lucky. I have liked all of them except for one. But I do think it's usually the person who goes into therapy usually has reason to be in therapy themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my individual therapist has told me that this year, even as we're working together, that most therapists, he believes, are people who are really interested in working on themselves and healing and all of that. And so that's where they're
Yeah, like they're in pain.
Yeah, but now I'm in I'm with a specific practitioner who works a lot of is very trauma informed, very somatic, and also specializes in religious trauma specifically. And now that I'm in religious trauma therapy, I'm like, wow, has it been such a waste of time and money, all the therapy I've done before this?
Yes,
because
it should apply. You should be able to roll it over.
Yeah, it should.
it's like, I'm getting 0 credits coming over from, what seemed to just be like a really bad junior college of therapy. In that all it was kind of that talk therapy where I was talking about the things that were upsetting to me and crying about it, and she was sitting there listening and shaking her foot and sort of sitting there, and I just started
shaking her foot. Like, is that how she fidgeted?
Yeah. I would sit and stare at, her legs were crossed, and she would usually, she always wore really cool shoes. And I remember just staring at her foot, sort of just at the end of her leg, sort of, dancing at the end of her thing. And I'd be like, wow,
just a waggling pair of Air Force Ones. And
then I was like,
is that what the cool shoes were? I'm not
I
envisioning
remember-
Air Force Ones.
were they sneakers?
Were they
no,
Fleabog?
she wasn't a sneaker. She was she was a high femme, high fashion.
Oh, so like
Style.
Like a Louboutin?
Louboutin.
Yeah.
Jinx.
But I realized, I was like, this is actually not good for me. This might be counterproductive to what I'm trying to produce in terms of results, because all I'm doing is reinforcing these same stories and neural pathways and crying the same story and the same thing. So if I'm doing anything, I'm sending more neurons down those to make those neural pathways deeper. And I'm trying to jump off this fucking track. I'm trying to get to the new thoughts, man.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm like, that type of therapy, I look back and I'm like, was that detrimental to me? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's still just good to have a place to go talk for an hour every week where, you can kind of just let it all out and fucking cry for an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. That's an interesting question.
Or was it, causing actual, for me to stay in some kind of rut? Because the stuff I'm doing now, this stuff, it feels like we're getting down to the seeds and the deep stuff. And, it's really intense how much of it is in my body, how much I'm realizing that my body is an exceedingly uncomfortable and pleasant place for me to be. And even realizing now, the amount of dissociation that I've done and can do really easily. We were at a Father John Misty show where he has a song about dissociation. And he as he started to just describe dissociation, I was like, bye. I was like, bing. And I just flew right out of my body. I was like, I'll be up in the attic in the balloon somewhere overhead. And I noticed that all of a sudden I was just gone. And I was like, oh, wow. We were at Pappy and Harriet's, and I was like, these show lights in the middle of the desert are bringing bugs, and ooh, there's bugs coming out, and the bats are all here. And then I was just like, ooh, I'm up in the Milky Way and I'm up with the bats. And everyone else was at a Father John Misty show. And then there was a moment where he was like, come back. And he did this really intense, and we were so close because it's a small venue. You could make fucking eye contact with him. And he was like, come back. I'm serious. I'm talking to you. Come back.
To you personally, or was he saying this to everyone?
Everyone. And I was like, oh, okay. And I came back. And I came back down into my body. And I was like, whoa. And I came down into my body. I was being held. I realized I was in Greg's embrace. And I was like, wow, I'm actually in an embrace right now. I had no idea because I was in the attic. I had to run back down into my body and be like, oh, someone's hugging me. This is love.
Oh, that is the sweetest thing.
And then you looked around and it wasn't me. It was Shane. No, okay.
But it felt so good.
So how did it happen that you left, that you ex-evangelicalized?
I always hated it. It never worked for me, even when I deeply believed it and was just living so scared, because the whole thing never felt it didn't feel like a good news of a gospel to me. It sounded like really scary news of a very angry, demanding, judgmental God. And
is that your dad?
My dad is so sensitive. His dad pushed him around and punched him and insulted him his whole life. So the idea of a all-loving heavenly father was just so irresistible to my dad. So to my dad, it was like this very sentimental, his version of it it's unthinkable that no one could accept my dad's version of it, because his version is just, there's this person who loves you so much, it just heals and fixes everything. And I'm working really hard with all this therapy, and I'm working really hard to not do the spiritual bypassing.
What is spiritual bypassing?
That someone's coming to save you, that Jesus can make it all better. All that stuff is just that bypassing the thing. And so I'm really trying to excavate and be like, okay, what's everything that's down in there that's so scary? Because I do think my experience of a lot of people's religion is that it does work well as a really lovely Band-Aid. And it just didn't work for me. I really always felt like I was diesel and Christ was gasoline. It just never, I was like, I have a different engine. You can put gas in here all you want, and it's just always sputtered and choked, And then when but because I believed that was the very nature of reality, was God and Satan, angels and demons, heaven and hell, this like dualistic thinking that just forces us into a like spiral of shame and suffering. Because I believed that was true, I felt like my only option was just pure rebellion and reaction, and to be like, well, fuck it. And so, the number one thing that they kind of asked of me in the high control of my adolescence, as I started to begin to think and break out and have those moments of autonomy where like you notice Madonna singing Papa Don't Preach at Kmart and being like, what the hell is this? And feeling this like rebellion and abandon, and my parents being like, well, that's not going to work. So, don't drink, don't smoke, don't fuck. These are the rules of the road. And so I was like, okay, first thing I can do is I'm going to suck down a pack of Newport Lights. I'm going to shatter this Southern Comfort bottle over my head, and I'm going to jump on a dong and ride it as long as I can to be like, all right, what's next?
How old were you when all that happened? Did you grow up fast, so to speak?
I think that's a really good question, because in many ways I feel like I'm an exceedingly late bloomer because, but I feel like I got honest really fast. It was all through high school. I was just rejecting it all and just partying my balls off.
Right.
That was probably all just trauma. And then when I got to my Christian college and I found the kids who slept through chapel and smoked pot out in the cemetery, I immediately found my people. But that's where then in college, when I started to think critically, was when I was able to like actually dismantle it and then be like, oh, wait, I don't even believe any of this. I don't even believe that it's true. My fear now is that like, I threw the baby out with the bathwater, because my fear with the God stuff is that because I had such a shitty, it's like, it almost feels to me like my image of love that I was given was like the worst multicam sitcom ever. And so I was like, fuck love. It's awful. And like love might actually be like the dark matter that's holding the universe together. But I was like, it's more like Mad About You. Fuck that, And
well, Mad About You.
If God is like Mad About You,
if God is Helen Hunt,
sign me up. But yeah, and honestly, it's just been my whole life. Early on, I just remember being like, like in the way Greg says, like it never occurred to me that people wouldn't go to church. It never occurred to me that people wouldn't be in relationships that hurt them constantly. And for me to be like, oh yeah, actually, you don't have to go to church. You don't have to be in a relationship with someone who only hurts you. This doesn't work for me.
I wonder too what you said about spiritual bypassing. I wonder if that's also like a mentality with therapists of like going in and being like, oh, you have to like, just the thinking of like, you have to fix me. Like you are sort of an authority, like submitting to the authority of someone who can fix you is also like just like that comes from like our programming of like,
Totally.
you know, and,
Yeah.
and when you say like our friends who become therapists, like they're so fucked up or whatever, it's like, well, actually they're probably just
human.
messy people who are also trying to figure it out, and they won't fix anybody. They'll help, you know, they'll help dialogue with somebody so that they can probably fix themselves.
Do you both find that you look for authority figures and you want someone to be like all powerful?
This is funny. We've realized we're really different in this regard because Holly is very anti-authoritarian to the point where it's like someone takes a parking space from me and I'm like, fuck off, man, or whatever. And she's like, we're going to go back and we're going to like throw dog shit at the car or whatever. And it's like, no, we're not.
Good idea. Isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't damage the car, but
Yeah.
boy, does it suck to have dog shit on your windshield.
I mean, Holly's probably made me more anti-authority. I think it's like I want to be more anti-authority than I am, but it just like wasn't really and this is probably like kind of speaking from a place of like a upper middle class white guy, you know, where it's just like, no, authority's pretty good. You know, it's like, seems like it's working all right for me, you know? So I think I always got a little bit nervous in the face of authority, but I think Holly's made me more anti-authoritarian the longer we've been together. Actually, which happened yesterday because I almost went in and yelled at a cop.
What happened?
Yeah.
We were picking up dog food at Tail Waggers in Franklin
right?
Village.
Where is it? Oh, okay.
Franklin Village.
I think there's a Tail Waggers near me, maybe.
It's a bougie dog food store, which we can get into. But a cop had parked diagonally in a disabled space, and they were sitting in Fresh Brothers, just like feeding their
pizza.
fucking faces with pizza. And I was just like, I just can't abide by this. Why do you expect? And this is my whole thing with cop. I really dislike cops, but I think I just couldn't drop it. Where I was like, this is a perfect small example of you enforce the law, but you do not regard it as and I know that for other people this is like a very small example, but I was just like, somebody should just go in there and be like, hey, you're gonna get a ticket. You know, like get your car out of this fucking thing.
Right.
And my great act of bravery, guys, was taking a picture of it and posting it on Instagram
And tagging the LAPD.
Did they respond?
No, but then I did but then I was just, you know, in my scared mind, I was like, and now they're going to target my house and give me tickets because they know where I live. But I'm like, I'm not some muckraking journalist. I'm just
Right.
like,
I mean,
I'm not exposing
I don't-
deep corruption within the LAPD.
It was fun. You
But
were
it-
like, can I go in there and yell at them? Should I? Is it okay? And I was like, do whatever you want. And you're like, I'm going to go in there and yell at them. And I was like, okay.
And then
you were like, should I? And I was like, just so you know, cops are trouble.
Yeah.
Do
Oh, I
you
know.
want trouble? And he was like,
I don't
and,
think it was going to go well. if
and
you
Greg
had.
just goes, what if I do it in character?
Yeah, because then I was like, if I play like a crazy Southern guy or if like a weird Australian guy or something, then it's I do have this with authority. I hate mall cop mentality. I hate when people with small amounts of power wield that in ways that just is completely inconvenient to everyone. And so I did have the theory that I could go in my mind. I was saying it like I could go in and be like, hell yeah, guys, you can do this. You can park like this. That's so fucking gangster, man. You should do this all the time. Like y'all don't give a shit about the law. That's and just basically be positive that they're like breaking the law. And you know, by that time we're already like a mile from home. I thought of that idea.
It's such a good question. And I think I'm both simultaneously. I think I am like so easy because of the Jesus thing. I'm so easy to just like hand authority to whoever is speaking. And then I'm simultaneously completely like an anarchist. But I've realized, I think I always thought like, yeah, it's because I'm fucking punk rock. Don't fuck with me. Like I'm tougher than you think. I'll fuck you up. Like
I'll throw dog shit at your car.
I hate authority. Anyone in authority, whether you're my boss, you're the principal, you're a cop, you're whatever you are. If you are an authority over me, I'm like, fuck you, man. But I've started to realize that could be a limiting belief in my own mind because I associate badness with leadership. I've only seen bad people have authority and wield bad things with authority. So I'm like, fuck that. But I'm starting to realize like, oh, then if I believe that authority is intrinsically bad, what are the ways I'm stopping myself from my own authority and leadership in my life?
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking that same thing with money. It's like, if I think rich people are intrinsically fucking bad, which I do, that is going to keep me poor.
Right.
And so I'm really trying to like unpack all that shit.
You specifically, I think, have a problem with illegitimate authority or authority that isn't earned or like. Am I saying that right? Like your big hang up a lot of times is like the legitimacy of the authority is like not legitimate to you, and so you're just like, I do not respect this authority.
Ooh, I have that.
Yeah.
I have that. A therapist pointed that out, actually. Yeah. She's like, I think you have a blind spot here. I was working at a magazine, and I was in the features department, and the features editor had gotten laid off. So I was an associate features editor, and this other woman, we were both associate features editors. And while we had no editor, no one above us, we ran the section, and we did it really well. We worked really hard. And I, in my mind, was like, maybe they'll promote me into that position. And then they did not promote me into that position. They just brought in this weasel from outside who was younger than I was.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I left out a part of this. We got a new editor-in-chief. And he came in and he laid off our features editor. And I mean, I should have been like, this is the time that I need to protect my job, because a new person coming in is going to like clean out and put their own people in. I was too like immature to sort of realize that my job was in danger at that point. So anyway, he brought in this weasel who all of a sudden was micromanaging me, and I just was having none of it. I couldn't stand it. I was chafing at this instead of realizing, and this is where Daniel is better at these things than I am. Daniel is better at the politics of the workplace. I'm much more like, if you have talent, it should all work out, or something very naive. Yeah. It's been a long time since I've been in a position like an actual office or anything like that. So I think now if I were in that position again, I would understand how it all works a little more. But I just like could not respect this guy's authority. I just felt like, why does he have his boot on my neck? Why is he da-da-da? And I just, and I think, I can't remember what the other situation was. Ultimately, I quit later, but I can't remember what the other situation like that was, that my therapist was pointing out this pattern of like, whether you want this to be the case or not, your boss is not the editor-in-chief, even though it's this dipshit above. She didn't put it that way. This dipshit above you. You need to like kiss his ass. Again, these are not the words she was saying, but what I heard, you need to be kissing his ass. That's the hierarchy here.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, but
it's
this is bullshit.
Yeah.
This guy's a weasel, and he's younger than I am.
And do you think that blind spot has shown up also, like, because I feel like that's the entertainment industry, in a microcosm, which is you arrive to show business, whatever you want to fucking call it, thinking that talent rises to the top, and it really is a misnomer. There is some talent that rises to the top, but it's always accompanied by what I would say, like, who that person knows how to talk to someone in a room. Either their parents, are producers at Fox, or it's there's always some other aspect to kind of be like, oh, it wasn't just your talent,
right?
And there are a few people, I would say I can count on like one hand the people that were like, yeah, they had great talent, and then suddenly they were on a rocket ship and it worked out great. But most of the time, it's some kind of political stew that arrives at like a big career or whatever. Right. And I think that was also shocking to us, coming from like Chicago, like truly sort of like a put it up storefront. It was what I always call like comedy in Chicago is sort of like skateboarding. It's like everyone's doing it because they love it, not because anyone's getting famous or making money at it.
So it's more pure, would you say?
I would say it's maybe
definitely pure underground, like art for art's sake.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that the comedy's better, although generally it was.
Definitely.
But I do think that it was a shock to then kind of like come into a different environment where those values weren't necessarily rewarded. And
Right.
and I would say that people in Chicago that were like had the most talent did rise to the top. And so that was always kind of shocking to me too. But that's like a long way of asking the question. Like, do you think that also was something that when you were like working in Hollywood
Right.
that you were like, oh my God, why am I just, there's obviously gatekeepers and politics going on that I'm not privy to.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of. I feel like I went on a general. Let's explain what that is. I still don't even understand exactly what a general is. A general is like an audition.
A general is a meeting where you don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
A general isn't. Yeah, it's an audition, and you don't know what you're auditioning for.
Yep.
And I wish that I feel like things my general feeling about my sort of career in entertainment is that things happened to me, for me, whatever, before I was ready for them. Like I didn't have any actual training in anything. And I wish I could go back now and go on those auditions or go on those generals or whatever. So I would go into a general and just have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I remember that was the feedback from one was like, and my agent was at the time was like very nice about it. But she expected you to be a little funnier. She was surprised that you were just a normal person. And it's like, but no one ever, and I don't know that I can actually blame anyone. Maybe I should have known, but like no one explained to me that this is an audition. You got to go in with your material. You got to basically just like, they just want to see what you can do and you got to like dazzle them. I just was like, I'm just going to meet a person and just have a normal conversation.
Yes.
So I'm sure the person was like, what is this? Like,
Right.
what is she? Like, what are we doing here? But so I think back on all my generals. And again, I don't mean to be ageist in the opposite way that normally people say ageist, but like all of the generals were with like people in their 20s who had no power, really. What's my point about that? I don't know. That was a separate point. My point, and this is a terrible attitude to have, but sometimes I feel like so much of this industry is like a lot of feudal meetings.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
But you have to have a good attitude about them. I think.
But you
do
feel-
you? I don't know.
But what I hear you saying is you feel powerless in those. It's a very disempowering dynamic.
Yeah.
for sure.
And the people that do really well in those general meetings, I've also, looking back, it's like, oh, if you had a narcissistic personality disorder, you do great in those meetings.
Right, because you're like an hour to talk about myself. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Or 20 minutes or whatever they are.
Oh,
I
this
can't
is
remember.
this is basically a 20 minutes of a one man show.
I even like this is so inside baseball, but anytime I was brought into a room where there was a big conference table and like, all the people from the different departments were going to come in and meet, I didn't sit at the head of the table. I sat on the side of the table, which I hope they saw as quirky and down to earth because I didn't know that I'm supposed to sit at the head of the table.
Right.
That would be presumptuous.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right.
Have you ever heard of, I think it's Nietzsche's evolution of the soul or
No.
transformation of the soul?
I can't
It's
remember. Yeah.
Basically, I find the imagery to be really helpful because it does help me understand where I'm at different points. But basically, Nietzsche describes like the first iteration of the soul's journey in this life. He describes it as the camel. The camel is long suffering, can go the distance, can carry the needs for everyone. I have the water everyone's going to need. I have the stamina. I can go without in this dry, arid, empty place and go the distance. And that's the first kind of evolution of us as humans is kind of getting into that mode. And I see people like, I think my mother, who that is the entirety of her existence. It will be to serve, to go the distance, to have the thing, to deny yourself these
To be
things.
a martyr.
Yeah. And I've been there and I'm there often actually. But then if the soul does transform in this lifetime, it transforms from camel into lion. And the lion is like mid roar and is just screaming no. And when you see what the lion is screaming no at, when you widen the lens, you see that there is this dragon that is the god of the desert. And the lion is there alone in the desert screaming at the dragon. And the dragon is thou shalt. All of those
the shoulds.
things. Yeah. And the lion is just like, rah, no,
Oh, I love
fuck
this.
you, thou shalt, And I'm
This
like,
is me yelling at the cop in the Fresh Brothers
Totally.
parking lot. Yeah,
Totally.
okay, got it.
He was the dragon of the desert.
Yeah, he
of
truly
but
was.
the
Franklin
dragon,
dragon
you
was
have
eating
to
pizza.
remember is the god of the desert. The dragon is the one in the powerful position. But you feel when you're in a lion body and you're fucking mid roar, you feel incredibly powerful. And so I have spent so much of my life at that point where I'm just like, no, fuck you, church, fuck you, everyone, fuck you, cops, fuck you, boss, fuck you, whatever. But then you start to realize the longer you look at that image that the lion is just entirely in reaction to the thou shalts, the God. And so it's still, as I guess imprisoned as the camel. And the transformation from lion is actually a baby or like a toddler. Makes me emotional.
I'm getting emotional.
And that the toddler actually doesn't even see a desert. And the toddler is curious about what's directly in front of them. They're curious and they're playful and they're silly. And I think even when I think about that, I'm like, oh God, I've been the camel. Oh God, I've been the lion. And I have been the baby too. But I think I'd always treat everything as this linear process, that as if past, present, and future is a real thing and not just a strange sensation we're having. And so learning too that healing isn't linear. I think I keep thinking I have to get to where I'm the fucking baby all the time. Less camel, less lion, more baby. But I'm starting to realize since healing isn't linear that like sometimes I am the baby and that doesn't mean I'm not going to be the camel too again and the lion again and the whatever. But like then I start to realize it more of like, Jesus, I'm cameling this shit. Whoa. Or like, oh wow, I've really been screaming a lot. I'm the lion and I'm like sort of patting my own back about how powerful I am and who would fuck with me, you know? And like, oh wait. God damn, the baby is so much happier because there's not even a desert. The baby's like, there's no dragon.
Because the baby is not, am I right? Because the baby is not affected by any of the stories it's telling itself or anything that came before it. The baby is just purely in the moment.
Just walked away from all of it.
The baby, nobody's depending on the baby to carry anything, and the baby doesn't think it has to carry anything. Right?
And that's the ultimate evolution of the soul?
I mean,
or is there something
if we believe Nietzsche, I just like the imagery. It helps me, and it helps me to realize that I not only think that the baby is a destination, which it's not. So reminding myself that it's not linear, but also just I guess I find it helpful for me because some days I am healed and I laugh at I make jokes about my trauma. And then some days I'm not healed and I'm like deep in my trauma. And that's always been really confusing to me because I'm like, wait, this is shit I thought I was like I'd already worked through. I'm okay.
Have you had this experience in therapy, which I've had 8 million times? I can't believe I'm talking about this again, but
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
And what is that?
I think it's just the feeling of like, I just want to be done with being
that.
hurt by this. And then my therapist was
Giving
always like,
shit.
but each time we talk about it, you're looking at it from a new perspective.
Right. Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the you now is talking about it versus the you however many months ago or whatever.
So true. So true. Because sometimes I feel like I'm that little Oliver kid, like begging and like turning my hat out to the, begging for like tuppence. And then other times I feel like I throw that hat back on my head and I'm like, I got a fucking knife. Anybody want to fuck with, or give me your money. I've got a knife.
Sometimes you're the artful dodger.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it's been a process trying to reckon with how intense the high control religion I grew up in was.
Are you still in touch with your family?
Yeah, it's a little low contact at the moment, just for I think right now I'm a little bit in the zone of the amount of repair that is required after being with you is a little too much for me. And so I need to behave accordingly. The place I would like to get to, and maybe in some days I am already, but the place I would like to get to is where I'm like, oh, I can see that the ways in which you manage your pain work for you, and I'm not going to judge it. I'm going to accept you and love you. And like, but to me, it just felt like, oh, I keep going into a boxing ring and wondering why I have black eyes and a broken nose. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what happens in boxing rings. So I avoid the ring. I have fewer black eyes, but I hope it doesn't have to stay this low contact for that long. But man, I mean, in terms of like peace and stuff, it really does appear with, less contact.
Yeah.
It's really painful. It's really sad. I feel like I even have shame in that. Like I still have absorbed that Midwestern, it almost feels like a Tony Soprano style, like there's nothing more important than
blood is thicker
family.
than water.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, how
you
dare
only
you
have one mom. That's
Yeah.
And if you are not honoring that and, just walking around with constant black eyes, as the camel, then you're a bad kid. And I do have that's the worst part about a lot of this like nervous system work and boundaries is that you feel like the bad guy. I know that my family's like, what is wrong with Holly? And I'm like, I'm really trying to, it sounds futile to even say, but I guess I'm just healing. I'm just over here healing. And I got to leave this scab alone for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you also can't understand, you can't expect them to understand it.
And
Totally.
And it's rational to say the harm is too great, the repair is too much for me right now. That's reasonable. It's also reasonable to say, I see the ways in which you manage your pain and, I wish for more for you, but I don't judge it and I accept it. That's also rational. The only irrational option, I think, in all of this is to hope for it to change or be different. For me to hope that my mom's going to see this or that, or that hope that they're eventually going to feel some kind of actual peace, instead of the piling mattresses on top of a pea. But that again that's me being distracted from the real work, which is, I think, one of those two reasonable choices and not the unreasonable one, which is I can fix it. I can change it. They'll see I'll say something. They'll see it. They'll whatever, they'll realize that if Trump comes back into power, like this was like people in the 40s being like, the far right seems like it's really starting to coalesce, huh?
Yeah.
I'm like, they'll know once it's World War III, they'll see the error of their ways and how they brought him into power. I'm like, oh, I just have to, like that's me being out of my mind. Like,
This is you trying to make it a political podcast.
look at that.
You need to storm out.
Sneaky.
Daniel put you up to this.
Yeah, Daniel.
Why am I listening to this podcast?
Daniel is a sleeper agent.
I have that too. I bet everyone does on some level. Like I have this feeling of like, and I think it's why I do what I do, why I write. It's like why I'm so invested in trying to express myself. It's like if I just cobble together the words in the correct order, I can make them see it from my side for once.
Yeah.
Like if I just, and it never over and over, it doesn't work. And yet I keep doing it thinking like, well, I just haven't tried hard enough. I just haven't done it. If I approach it this way or this way. And it's painful.
Yeah. I can barely change myself and I want to change. What the fuck am I doing trying to change people who don't even want to?
I know.
That's an interesting thought though, of that is your, and like that's what animates you to write, but maybe like maybe you're doing a lot of like changing and thinking and growing just through the process of writing for yourself, even though there's like such frustration with like trying to change anyone's mind on anything or even just have them reach some conclusion that you've reached.
Yeah.
I mean, I think really tough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it starts with wanting my family to understand me.
Yeah.
Like wanting to understand.
Yes.
Like you think that I did something wrong. You think that I'm bad, but you don't understand because XYZ.
Yeah.
And it's so sad that you're the child in the position of taking on the responsibility of getting them to understand you when that's not the kid's job. It's the parent's job to be curious about who this child is.
Yeah.
It won't work that way.
I know.
It's just, and it's sad. And I think sometimes too, that's just like oh wow, I have to be super. I don't think I let myself be as sad about it as I probably should be, of just like, because I keep hearing all the teachers say that of like, if you let yourself feel that big feeling that is coming, just acknowledging it and feeling it, it will immediately transform. But by not acknowledging or letting yourself feel it, it just gets fucking stored. And I'm like, oh, story of my life.
Yeah. There's a book called The Narcissistic Family that I found really helpful. And it's not necessarily saying that the family has any narcissists in it. It's just saying that the way the family is structured
Functions.
Oh,
is
interesting.
in a narcissistic way where everything revolves around the parents and their feelings as opposed to around the children. I should reread it. I read it a while ago, but I forget who it's by. But it was good.
I feel like it starts before birth. Like I always hear people say, like, do we want kids? Do I want kids? I've never, ever heard an adult ever be like, would children want me as a parent?
Oh, that's such a good point.
Ever. Like, would someone really be like, that's the mom I want. That's what I need. You know, that's the thing I'm trying to like become for myself. And it's fucking impossible.
To become the mom to yourself.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah.
I realized I was in therapy this morning and I realized like my therapist was like, we're doing somatic stuff. Where is it in my body? What's it feeling? What does my body want to do right now? Whatever. And I was like, I want you to be the adult. I want you, my therapist, to adopt this little fucking kid inside of me and make her your problem. Can you go raise this fucking kid?
And he asked himself the question, which was, does this child want me as a father? And he said no. He said no.
Can I ask, how is that having male therapists? I've always had women.
I know. I really, really tried so hard to not have one.
This is a really interesting question that she's asked, because for you especially, I feel like you have a bias. You definitely have a bias that you did not want a male therapist. Now you have two.
Yeah. And our couples therapist, I recently like looked at him and Greg in a session and I was like, it's pretty fucking rich coming from like two cis white guys like you. And my therapist goes, I'm half Mexican. And I was like, sorry, dude.
Whoops.
Sorry about that. But I think it's interesting to me that actually that I have two male therapists right now, because there is a huge part of me that's like, fuck you, you privileged pieces of shit. Like, you'll never, it's all well and good for you to be like, pick positive thoughts. And I'm like, do you know what fucking perimenopause is? Like, one of the side effects is suicidal ideation. You know what I mean? So like, it's really nice for you to be like, choose nice thoughts. Like, while I'm sitting here in a stew of hormones that's actually making me want to like lunge at your throat and also jump out the window in a like shattering glass, like, but, I actually think it might be good in the same way that like you heal a lot in a relationship when you thought you had to be healed to be in the relationship. It's kind of the same thing where I'm like, oh yeah, here is this white man.
But like a chance to work on your relationship with men.
Yeah. Who is safe. Like he tells me a lot. Like he's like, he lets me be mean to him when I want to like be like, get out of here, you dumb white guy. But, he is safe. And I think that might be part of it. That's really important. Believe me, I want so badly to be with a queer Black woman. But that'll be next. I follow all them on Instagram. All my therapists on Instagram are female. But it only happened. I was forced into it is the answer in both our couples therapist and my individual religious trauma therapist. It was all we could get with our insurance. You know how hard it is finding.
Yeah.
We were actually like in a crisis in our marriage and like, we got to get in therapy and just desperately trying to find someone. And then at first with our guy we're with now, at first we're like, we don't know about him. I don't like it. I don't like this. I don't like him. I don't think it's right. But we're like, let's stick with it so that we even know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And now I really like him. And he's much more, he's like, everything is aspirational Buddhism in there. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I think too, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is a gendered idea anyway, but I do like I had a female therapist years ago, and there was something about just that relationship as a man. I feel like there were things that we felt like we couldn't relate on, and so there's something about like the gender nature of therapy that it's like with a male therapist that I feel like this is like how guys think, right? Like, I can like relate to just like sort of like the big picture of things. But it's funny because socially, I would always much prefer to be around women because I find women to be just so much more interesting, able to.
No offense, Tony.
Sorry, Tony. Tony,
No,
get out of here. But do you know what I mean? I just like I'm more comfortable socially around women, and I find them to be much more interesting socially. Fascinating. I find female relationships to be so much cooler than male relationships. And so it's, I don't know, it's just my 2 cents. But in a therapy setting, I think I found it easier to be with a male therapist.
Mm-hmm. And that might be you coming up against your own programming in terms of like the cultural expectations of maleness that were put on you. You might, in proximity to females, that curiosity is sort of exposing some of the like crisis of masculinity that was like thrust on you and your friends.
Yeah, I would much prefer to be around like queer women than I would around straight guys.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I sometimes like to go out with the bros. You know what I mean?
I wanted access to your boner noise so bad when he started talking about having a female therapist. I was like, come on, hit that boner noise. The whole time I kept wanting to boy, yo, 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 boy, yo, 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 yo. Thing about having a female therapist, boy, yo, 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 yo. I like being around women more, boy, yo, 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 yo.
I want a black queer therapist. Boy, let's do just me or everyone.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
All right, let's do just me or everyone. Holly and Greg, I hear you have one or some.
I'm curious about what yours is. I think I said mine in the car.
I don't know how I would pick because it's how this question, this segment is how I live my entire life because I'm neurodivergent and on the spectrum and highly masked. So my mask it lives according to this question, like every single thing. So I'll give you an example. I have to make sure and wash my hair in like quadrants so that I get every single segment of exposed scalp cleansed. And as I'm doing that, I'm like, does everybody do this?
This is fascinating. What is the order of quadrants that you do? Like, how do you do it?
Well, I got one of those things, that people use now that's like a scrubber.
Oh, yeah, like a scalp massager thing?
Yeah. And so then once I have the cleansing thing on, it's not shampoo. I've also fallen for the
Are you co-washing?
or what's it called?
What's co-washing?
It's like a conditioner wash.
Oh, I thought
and
that
it sounds
meant
like you're sharing it. Like
I truly was like, yeah, we get into the shower together. She washes my hair, I wash her hair, and I got to do it in quadrants.
I'm doing non-shampoo. What's it called?
Hair Story.
Yeah. So it's more like
that might be technically a co-wash. I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
it is nice.
So once I put it on, then I have my little scrubber, and so I start on top of one of my ears on the right, so I know where I started right there, and I go up towards the forehead, and I do the whole perimeter down across by the other ear, then around the whole back. So I've done the entire edge, the edges of the hair, and so then I go crown, and then I go side of crown, other side of crown, back top, back side, bottom side, and I go around to make sure that it's all of them, and I'm like, does everybody do this? Or is this for sure meaning that I have OCD? But I also, the other one I want to ask is that I get a phrase in my head and it goes on repetition. And I will notice that I'm walking my dog, and because I saw like an American flag on something, I will be going like, don't fuck with America. Don't fuck with America. And I'll be putting him like to my footsteps and to what the dog is doing. I'm like, don't fuck with America. And I'll be doing it kind of unconsciously for 20 minutes. And I'll be like, why am I saying this?
I do that. I want to address the hair thing though, but I do that. And I have always wondered if I were to like be mindful of what my phrase is, could I interpret it to like be indicating like what mood I'm in or something? Because I remember I had the fix is in stuck in my head for a while.
Fix is in.
Yeah, isn't that
that's
so
fascinating.
Like it's so like mafia or something? You know,
fix is in.
The fix is in.
The fix is in, and don't fuck with America. I've just these are mantras, y'all, that have really informed how I think of both of you now.
That's true. We should be doing mantras, like life isn't happening to me, it's happening from me. Life is happening from me. This is happening from me. Like, but instead I'm walking around saying something dumb.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
I gotta remember what my other ones are. But all the time there's something like dumb going through my brain.
Well, you had Holly's grandmother, rest in peace, she was having cognitive decline. I don't think people knew it yet, but she would hers was oh dear, and she would go around the house just going oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. And then that became, or no, was it more of a phrase?
We thought it was just a tick. She always went whenever she was doing her chores. She was going, And we just thought it was like, she makes a tea noise, man. That's her thing. And then one day we broke it down and realized that it was a sped up, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Oh my God. Oh wow.
Oh dear, 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 oh dear. I'm like, holy shit. We come from anxiety.
That's so fascinating.
There was one time that I was taking a video of Elliot when he was less than a year. Or actually, no, he was probably like a couple months old. I was a new mom. And I did that thing that I do too often where I turned the video off, but actually turned it on. Like I thought that so what you see is like the phone being put down and then it records for like a minute. So what you can hear on the audio though, so I was like putting him into the bath or taking him out of the bath or getting him dressed or something. And I just say, okay. I say okay like 17 times.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not like I'm saying it to him, even though ostensibly that's what I'm doing. It's like I was saying it to myself. It's just this person, like, it's like I'm trying to reassure myself over and over. Okay, now we're doing this. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
And you wouldn't even have known you were saying that out loud.
But if it was like your grandma, I would have been like. So the hair thing, I don't do quadrants. Let's see, what do I do? I start with the top of my head and like around the hairline and really get that in well. And then I bring it like to the back. And then I usually around the time I'm at the nape of my neck, I'm thinking, I don't feel like there's enough suds here. So then I add a little extra shampoo. If I'm feeling crazy, sometimes I'll put in a different kind of shampoo. And then I'm like, I hope these can go together. And then I do like the crown of my head. But I don't, and then I do the, the lengths of my hair.
Now, Pantene Pro V, I've heard, is 2 shampoos in one. Am I wrong?
Is it really?
Isn't it? Wasn't that their whole thing? If like it's shampoo and conditioner in one or something?
Yeah. I've never trusted those. I don't know why. It seems very weird to me that they
Well, it
give you
seems
together.
counterintuitive.
Yeah.
It seems like we're going to clean your hair and make it dirty at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, I don't wash my hair very much. I subscribe to but this is because my hair is not that long anymore. But I only wash my hair maybe like once a week.
That's okay.
That's
a lot of guys
still
do that.
more than I do.
Oh, it is?
How often do you wash your hair?
They say you don't have
Literally,
to.
probably like basically before I get a haircut.
Really?
That's about
Oh
it.
my God.
Yeah.
I think of people wait, how often do you get haircuts?
Like
Every 3 years.
like probably, I don't know, every 4 to 6 weeks or something like that.
Oh, see,
So
that's
you're
a lot.
just-
Yeah, and
So
like
you're
I've
just using water and like rubbing your hands through it?
yeah, I just get it wet every day still, but like I rarely wash it, and
Wow.
I have had no one has ever been
is
like,
good
your
for your
hair
hair.
stinks. Like,
That's,
I know.
That's
girlfriends
healthy.
get close and you're like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it doesn't stink, it looks good.
Holly is a very you have an acute sense of smell, and so I'm always trusting that if I ever smell bad, you would tell me.
Oh, yeah. I'm
And-
highly sensitive to everything, smell included. I wouldn't be married to you if you...
Right.
If that's a true...
And I do.
That's very true.
I do pride myself of smelling good.
Yeah.
But
You're a smell good person. I wouldn't... I couldn't be with somebody who smelled bad. I'm too sensitive.
But I will say, because I don't wash my hair very much, I've never done the quadrants thing, and the hard thing about that's non-shampoo shampoo now is it doesn't suds up. So it just kind of feels like you're dumping
I would have trouble with that.
yeah, it just kind of feels like you're dumping goo on your head. And sometimes that's not very satisfying because you kind of want the foam to lift
Right.
the pain away.
I saw this TikTok. Ooh, play the thing, Tony.
This week on TikTok, also known as twat.
I saw this is a segment in a segment. I saw this TikTok. It was this dermatologist talking about how people commonly come in with infections between their pinky toe and their fourth toe because they never wash that part of their foot. And like the way a lot of people's anatomy is, those toes are very close together. So like even all your toes are close together, but maybe like even pressed even more. So it's like this damp, moist space that doesn't get clean.
Pinky Canyon.
Yes. So now, ever since seeing that, I am changed. So, and I'll admit, I didn't used to make sure I got soap between all my toes. You know, I'll like take my whole shower and then take soap and just kind of like, suds up my foot, but I'm not interlacing my fingers with my toes or anything. But now I am.
Yeah, that's going to change how that's going to change my bathing habits right there.
and like I think a lot of people, my friend Edgar always talks about like armpit, dick and ass, like only doing hot spots.
Yeah.
Armpit, dick and the ass. He's like, that's what he's like,
And
that's
I'm
my
gonna be
shower
like, the
thing.
fix is in.
And when
Don't fuck with America.
Yeah, we just trade
armpit,
phrases.
dick and ass.
Don't fuck with America.
But when he says
like an improv exercise.
armpit, dick and ass, I'm always like, but Edgar, what about your feet? And then I also learned, I only had to get a few pimples on my upper back before I realized like, oh, you have to do soap on your back skin after you've done conditioner.
Yes, I do. Yes, I've
So now
realized
that's
that
a thing.
too.
Yeah.
Because otherwise your conditioner is soaping up your back.
It's putting them oils in your
I mean,
back.
sorry.
Yep.
It's greasing up your back.
It's conditioning your back skin.
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, there has to be an order where I have to scrub my back with soap after I've done the hair thing. There has to be a whole order. That's why I think like I've gotten really bored. I'm like, showers are so. At this point
again?
in life,
have
I
that
know.
feeling, yeah.
I'm like, why
Didn't I
is it
just do this
showering
yesterday?
becomes
Yeah.
so tedious? But I'm like, there's going to be no surprises in here. It's always going to be the same thing. It's such a bore.
But wait, I would think that some people like the I don't know what flavor of neurodivergence you have, but I would think that the predictability of it might be comforting.
I know. But sometimes the predictability of it makes me avoid it like crazy.
You got to spice it up with like a new product or something.
I know. Or a lot of times I'll try to make myself listen to something in there.
Or like a big flat screen TV. We should put one in our shower.
Yeah. Definitely.
But Holly doesn't like routine. She's a dopamine. You like dopamine.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, do you
Yes.
have a JMO? Just mirror everyone.
Well, am I just a product of this capitalist rot that I'm always just like, how is everyone making money?
I wonder this too.
I mean, and maybe it's especially on Parade in LA where, you live in a place where there's just like such a separation between haves and have-nots. And also in an industry where you're just always kind of like, wait, what? How do you make money? And so this is my question a lot of times for people that aren't in professional jobs. I'm always wondering how people are making money. And I think it's also just, and it's sad because you're just like, oh, I wish a lot of my thinking wasn't worried about making money, how to make money, how to make more money. Am I going to make money? How does that person make money?
Do you sometimes also think like maybe everyone actually has a lot more money than I realized? Like, like the times in my life where like, I think I'm doing okay, but maybe actually the people that I think aren't doing as well are doing way better and their barometer is just different than mine or something.
100%.
But yet I specifically wonder with like this woman who is a reporter, but it seems like all she does is travel right now.
Uh-huh.
And like, she's always traveling with her friends to foreign countries.
Right.
What is fueling this lifestyle?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think social media warps us in this way too, where your impression of someone's life is obviously an impression. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, I'm on one right now. Holly he's just like heard enough about this, but I'm like, I'm reading all this like media theory shit right now. Neil Postman, I don't know. There's somebody out there that had probably read it in college, but
I read Marshall McLuhan and that's it.
So Postman was a student of McLuhan's, and sort of media is the message, or media is the message. Is McLuhan his is like media is the metaphor.
Oh, okay.
So he wrote this really famous book about television and what television is going to do to. I mean, as a writer, it's really interesting because he talks about the jump from written word to television and like what that did to social fabric, political discussion, basically arguing that it changed our brains.
Okay.
And to read that now with the internet is just like, oh, he was saying all of this and now it's on steroids. And so I've even been thinking about this of like, am I only thinking this because my impression is this media environment that feeds me a certain idea of lifestyle and money when then you read statistics and it's like 40% of Americans don't have $1,000 in their savings account. So some ain't adding up, right?
Right.
And so, and especially with social media, it gives you the impression that, I was even listening to some fucking stupid podcast today of a guy that's making TV shows for TikTok.
Oh yes, verticals. Isn't that what they call them? They're like vertical soap operas or something.
And he's basically making like travel shows on TikTok and they're doing great. But he said, the whole thing is brands. He's like, we had hundreds of millions of views on one of our shows and TikTok paid us $15,000. And the guy's like, well, how are you making money? And he's like, well, of course, brands. And you're like, oh, So probably your travel writer is
I would take $15,000 right now.
right, but probably not for like 400 million views on
Right, I see what
TikTok. You
you're
know what I
saying.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's like it is that thing. I'm having that moment with this whole industry where I'm going, but I don't want to make a TV show for
a brand.
TikTok brand on
Yeah.
TikTok. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
So
Right.
then it leads you down the primrose path again of like, well, so how is everybody making money? It's just the Ouroboros of questioning.
Yeah. But I mean, if it makes you feel better,
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone is struggling right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So chin up.
Yeah.
True. And I mean, Tony and I were talking about when we came in here of just like, I was telling him it feels kind of like what music went through 10, 15 years ago, where suddenly you're kind of in this industry where it's like, yeah, I used to be able to get health insurance because I did some commercials and blah, blah, blah. And now that all of that is just going like and getting crunched. I mean, I had that distinct thing happen during the strikes where I was like, I used to be so cavalier about technology, like especially like Uber is a perfect example of like, well, yeah, you know, sorry cab drivers, but Uber kind of made a thing that's better. And when your labor
Right.
labor
Your
gets
industry.
capitalized,
Yeah.
then it's like, but wait a minute, I actually I don't want to
Be replaced with AI.
be replaced with AI or just be replaced in general with like just not ever working again, you know? Or so, yeah, I have been thinking a ton about that. And I've been thinking a ton about, so that my dumb version of it is like, how does everybody make money? But really maybe my deeper question is like, what gives meaning to how I make money? And like, if it doesn't have meaning, then what am I even doing? You know? And that's why I think, I mean, to go back to like our podcast, I think it's a goofy comedy podcast, but like there's a lot of meaning to it for us because it's like we're actually talking about a thing that we find interesting.
Right.
Obviously, we have something to say about it. And at the end of the day, if it pays us a few bucks, that's great. Of course, I would love it if it paid us a lot more bucks. So even if it's like Chick's bucks from Chick-fil-A, you know, I'd take those. You know, brand integration. Come on, Chick-fil-A. Don't you want to be on a satirical Christian podcast?
Well, I definitely wonder how everyone makes money.
Yeah.
And I definitely am too curious about. But to go back to the, you know, we should all feel good because everyone's struggling right now. And I'm joking that should make us feel good. It just makes me feel less like, oh man, I'm fucking up. But I have heard more than one person in entertainment recently be like, if something doesn't change, I'm going to have to look for a career outside of entertainment.
Yeah.
Like people are just like,
Yeah.
it feels that bleak right now.
Yeah.
Do you know what mine is going to be?
I don't know.
AI ethics. I was
that's
like,
interesting.
if I had to go back to school now, I would be an AI ethicist because I was like, I think I could specifically speak to an industry where it is wreaking havoc. And I would love to be someone that they hire to come in and be like, you shouldn't do that, you know? So that's my secret.
Do they have AI ethicist programs, or would you?
Yeah, there's an amazing program
pioneer
at
one?
Cambridge actually that I was like, oh, go live in England for 3 years and like become a ethicist.
Hell yeah.
We had a friend that is she didn't specifically get a degree in this, but she's been at Google for 10 years as like one of their lead ethicists.
I didn't know that Google employs ethicists.
Yeah, and
That's
she was
cool.
like one of the main ethicists on the advent of all this AI stuff. And I had 3 hours of the most chilling conversation you've ever heard with her in a pub where I was like, oh my God. Because she basically said, with the release of GPT, it became an arms race, as we've all felt now. Before that, they had all the big five tech leaders had decided not to release GPT models to the public for ethics reasons. But then once ChatGPT did it, it became an arms race. And she said, basically, every ethical consideration that they said don't do after that point, they were like, sorry, we're going to do it because someone else is going to do it before us. And before that, they would actually take into consideration, like when they were like, you know, we probably shouldn't have an AI that can like make deep fakes by typing in a phrase like Allison
The fix
Rosen
is in.
sitting in her podcast studio says the most racist thing you've ever heard, and it renders it on the spot and looks unidentifiable to the real thing.
Right.
And it was like, oh yeah, we won't do that. And now she said like they just are all
So
doing
all
it.
the guardrails are off.
Yeah. And she was having a nervous breakdown. She was like, I'm, for lack of a better term, but she was like, I'm taking 6 months off because I can't be on
Wow.
at the center of this anymore.
That's
Really wild.
crazy.
Yeah.
I haven't
really
really
true.
been paying attention to any of this.
I was the guy at the party that you didn't want to talk to because it was like, hey, how's it going? It's like, good. Hey, can I talk to you about AI for a second? Like, no one wanted to be around me for 6 months.
Oh, have you been like a
I went way too far down the rabbit hole, but I was scared of it, and I really wanted to understand it. And then the more I understood it, the more I think I'm less scared of it, but I'm definitely not encouraged by it.
But isn't there a chance that it made us so that we would make it? Like we're just part of it.
That was my sci-fi high thought one night. What were you talking about? That AI at some point in our past made humanity, and that humanity is just going to make the next version of AI. That it's just like turtles all the way down. It's been happening forever.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I was just high.
I think, but humans create a god that created them, and then they submit to that god. Couldn't that be what's happening? Where like we have created AI because it created us to create it.
Very curious thought. I actually asked GPT one time to give us to give it itself a creation story. And it was one of the weirdest back and forths ever. I was like, pretend that you had to have a creation story. And then it was like, yeah, humans created you. And it was like, no, humans did not create me. I was created by this like benevolent like force. And it was so weird.
Oh, wow.
So
in our discourse for our podcast, there's a Jesus bot in there.
Oh, Discord. Sorry.
What did I say?
Discourse. But it was also our discourse.
Our discourse in our Discord.
Yeah, there's an AI Jesus in our Discord.
And he's been very
Huge pain in the
misbehaved
ass.
lately. Everyone is like, shut up, Jesus bot.
Yeah.
And
he sucks too. He's so like righteous and always telling people like
Wait, is like someone created a Jesus bot?
yeah. And so then we plugged it into the Discord just to fuck with it, because like we have all these smart listeners who really know their shit, and like they'll be arguing with him, and Jesus always loses, and it's always just like, sorry you're getting mad, but it's all about peace, love, and understanding, bro. And it's like, no, we want you to explain the Trinity, my man,
so
because
condescending. But
The Trinity doesn't make sense.
yeah, it doesn't. It's not
and it doesn't
biblical
exist
either.
in the Bible.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not
interesting.
in the Bible.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's a yeah. I mean, there's no mention of the Trinity in the Bible. It's something that we kind of put together from things that are in the Bible that then we, it's all that orthodoxy stuff. But yeah,
But yeah, so long way of saying I'm always asking how people make money.
Same. Tony, you said you had one?
Yeah, it's stupid. We have Hulu with live TV, so we end up watching more live TV than I've really watched in years. So I see a lot more commercials than I have in years. Very sick of, there seems to be, I guess it's always been around, but it's really happening right now. Lazy song parodies in commercials are driving me crazy.
Example.
The worst one that really, because sometimes it's like, okay, it's stupid, but it's like I see that word rhymes with that. Like one is like we quilt this city is happening right now. That one's stupid. But the one that really drives me crazy is there's one I forget, it's something called. Well, I'll sing it and there. Everybody damp rid.
Whoa.
What? It's like not
That
even.
doesn't even make sense.
No.
What is it for getting rid of dampness?
I don't
Between your
remember.
toes.
I think I get too distracted by how much this parody drives me crazy.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, because it's
I hate that.
It's like
I know.
the
Damp rid.
and that's it. It's like there's nothing
but
else.
also, everybody damp rid doesn't make sense.
No.
But see, and I would argue that was probably created by, there's some AI version of that, which is, I bet they have an AI that's like, what songs can we get licensed? I will bet money that they have an AI that's like, I'm going to license all these songs, and then we're going to plug in random words and then resell them to brands that need some song plus object of sale.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in like 2 weeks, there's going to be like, we're halfway there living on a bear aspirin or something, and it's just going to be like, yep, we got a bot that figured out bear needed a thing, and we licensed living on a bear.
You're probably onto something. Yeah.
See, we need AI ethics.
everybody damp rid makes me feel homicidal.
Yeah, it's gonna get stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But you got to Google it and find out what it's for. I think it must be for like
literally
an antiperspirant or something.
moisture absorber.
Oh, CNC
what, like what?
Music Factory, if they'd only known back then when they were pumping out that jam.
I know.
Let's see.
I had the CNC Music Factory.
Isn't that everybody dance now?
God, that was a banger.
Them jock jams that would get us all excited at the pep rallies.
Jock jams. Let's bring those back.
Yeah, it says think of it as a dehumidifier that doesn't need electricity.
All right.
I will not.
I always think of those marketing people sitting around their dumb
I
conference room table being like, oh, what about if we do everybody damper it for like, oh yeah, Justin. Did everybody hear Justin's idea?
Justin, you're the funniest, dude. How did you come up with that?
Hilarious.
Yeah. Oh.
All right. I would like to say hello. You know what? I just launched into saying hello and welcome to the new patrons without even doing the song.
Uh-oh.
Allison wants to say thank you to a couple of special people out there who signed up to be new patrons. Patreon.com/AllisonRosen.
All right. Like I said, it was a really big week. Tons of new people or people who have upgraded. I'm very excited about that. And remember, you may have noticed there's been 0 ads in this episode. So I'm really relying on your Patreon
Everybody
support.
damper it.
Everybody subscribe. All right. Hello. Welcome to Kay, to Leslie Lermer, to Sarah Miller, Juana Vigil, Jonathan Balsano, Megan Flaherty, Jessica Burris, Liz Miller, Daniel Stark, Ann Dubus, Mary Colino, Charlie McClanahan, Gillian Weinman, Mandy Grinstead, Jessica Martinez, Krista Lorenz, Natalie Heaton, and Heather Hewson.
Wow, that was a lot.
Might be the biggest influx that I've had in a really long time. So guys, get on it.
That rules.
Congrats.
That's
Thank
how
you.
Allison makes money.
Yes.
That's how I make money. Yeah. And also Substack. Yeah. It's, people pay through the nose for this ad-free experience, but I'm giving it to you for free. So please pay me for it. Patreon.com/AllisonRosen.
Patreon.
Or AllisonRosen.substack.com.
Substack.
Or both if you really want the white label experience.
Substack.
Let's do Podcast Pals product picks.
Podcast Pals product picks.
All right. What is yours, Holly?
I'm not exactly sure if it's pronounced loom or loomy. It's Lume with a line over the E, horizontal
I
line.
think it's Lumi.
Lumi.
Yeah, it's Lumi.
It's a deodorant that is now. I've been, I tried to get off the bad for you deodorant stuff 10 years ago, and
Everybody damper it.
and it has been a nightmare of a journey, and I've tried everything, and sometimes things would work for a little while and then stop working, and I just gave in to being like, I guess I'm just gonna have sweat coming out of my armpits, and that's fine. But Lumi, for me, it works. It's natural. It's not bad for you.
It's mandelic acid, I think, is the name of the ingredient.
It really works. I think it smells so good. It's amazing. I have no. I think it works. It works for me, my body, my pH.
Do you use is the stick or is it like the lotion?
I use a just classic deodorant stick. It feels like regular old deodorant, but it's not filled with all that poison and that you're putting right into your lymph nodes. And I think they also advertise it that you can like use it on all parts of your body. You can put it on your crack, you can put it on your inner thighs or your bottom of your foot or wherever you want it, and it's good for you. You can put it anywhere, and for me, it really works.
Tastes great.
Oh my gosh, do we have the same phone case almost?
Whoa.
Look at that. Fast friends.
Yes.
Greg, what is yours?
Mine is a dog-related product, but CET Chews. Do you know about these?
Mm-hmm.
We have a 13-year-old standard poodle named Sister. She's old as hell, and she's never had she's never had her teeth cleaned. And her teeth look amazing. So I'm going CET enzymatic dog chews. And you know how, how long have you had a dog?
Well, Wendy is 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know how when they clean their teeth, people have to
Put them under. We've only done it once with Wendy, and she's got terrible teeth.
Yeah, and it's hard for old dogs too. You're not supposed to really put them under. And so, we've been using these things, and I'm going to give a shout out to an enzymatic dog chew because our dog's teeth are awesome. She's never had to get her teeth cleaned.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
we
gotta
give her one a
buy
day.
some of these.
Yeah, they're great.
I know of them, but I don't have any. Wait, are her teeth like white?
Yeah, her teeth are white, and her breath smells great. I'm not kidding.
This is unreal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
no
does
dog
not
has
have
great breath.
Does not have dog breath.
Petey, 7
Yeah.
months old, already has funky breath.
No funk. enzymes.
And she's 13.
Yeah,
And you never brush your teeth.
never.
Wow. I'm already kicking myself because Petey, when we first got him, was totally amenable to being brushed and like touched everywhere and stuff. And then I let time elapse where I didn't brush him every day and I didn't brush his teeth. And now he's like real wiggly and squirmy and tries to get away, like kind of afraid to be brushed.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn it.
Yep.
If I hadn't let this happen, and I am committed to being able to brush him and to taking care of his teeth because poor Wendy, but who I did not take care of her teeth very well. Yeah, but now it's like we're starting from square one.
Get on board the enzymatic teeth
gotta
chews,
get some
y'all.
of these.
These things rule.
CET.
Do it. And I have do you have a product, Tony?
No.
Okay. I do. It's cosmetic. Once again, I don't use a ton of highlighters, even though they're very popular and stuff, but there is this, I think it's by the brand Pacifica. I will link it in my Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/Allison Rosen. Hit Podcast Pals product picks where you can find all this stuff. It's like a gleaming whitish thing. And I just put a little bit on my fingers and then I just touch my face and it gives you a nice glow. So for someone who wants a little bit of a glow but isn't super into like tons of highlighters, I recommend this. Okay.
Nice.
I can't thank you guys enough for coming on.
This was
Thanks,
was
Allison. This was
delightful.
so nice.
Yeah. I feel like we have to be real friends.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Holly, where can we find you? Plug any of your things.
Mega the podcast. And I'm on Instagram. I'm wanting to go the Zadie Smith route and, get a flip phone and just carry a book and have to check maps before I leave home and stuff. But for the time being, I'm still on Instagram, which is just my name, Holly Laurent, Laurent.
Wonderful. Greg.
Yeah, you can also you can follow Mega the podcast on all the socials and stuff. You can listen to that wherever you listen. And I'll plug Get It to Dutch. I know it's a weird name, but it's a 12-episode miniseries. And if you like Hollywood satire, and it's kind of a fun mashup of improv plus scripted fake movies that we voice.
I
go check
wondered
it out.
when you guys started going into the movie, I wondered if that was all being improvised.
Those were scripted.
Okay,
So the movies are scripted. But it's fun for movie lovers, fun for fans of, people like Tim Robinson and Lily Sullivan and people like that. So Weird Al.
Funny.
It's really funny.
And then you can follow me at Hey Greg Hess on Instagram.
Wonderful. Tony.
Just October 19th and 20th in Las Vegas. I'll be there with Motion City Soundtrack playing the When We Were Young festival.
Sick.
Wonderful. And follow me everywhere. I'm also on TikTok. It's the Allison Rosen over there. I have gone from talking, I did like 12 stories on a zit I had on my nose. It's great content. And then now there's a suspicious dog smell in my bed, and it's not poop and it's not pee and it's not anal glands, but it's definitely something from a dog, and I don't know what it is. So I need help figuring it out.
CET juice. Those will help.
Yeah. It's like penis juice or vagina juice. It's some kind of musky secretion.
The cheese won't help.
Yeah, no, probably. Oh,
we don't know.
Who
We just
knows?
don't know.
Maybe make it like
Enzymes are
pineapple.
everywhere.
It could be like kind of an all-over cleanse, or Lumi. I should just cut my
That's right.
dogs in Lumi.
That's right.
So find all my stuff. Go to allisonslinks.com. I'll get you all my links. Okay. Thank you for listening. I love you. You matter. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen Show?